welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to have the first side by side, I should say, of my second series of 2-hop beers. This series is featuring Citra and Amarillo. So beer number one is Citra Amarillo. The second one is Amarillo Citra. I would suggest going back and watching the first two so you kind of know what's going on here, as I'm not going to go over the grain bill or the hop schedule. As I move these out, I'm sure everybody can see. I'll just put them both over here. So if we take a look at these, as I said in the Amarillo Citra version, I do believe this beer is oxidized. I could be wrong, but I think it is. So if you look at the color, this one is more of a golden yellow in color, where this is like a dirty orange in color. Almost like a sand color, like a brown color. Bubbles are still kicking big time from the head. Beer 2 does have a bigger head. Why is that? I don't know. Maybe because most of the sugar was eaten. It's not as thick, and that way it could carb faster and better. I don't know. So beer 1 came in at 7.77%. Beer number 2 is 8.13%. Both are using SO4 yeast. Both use the same amount of malt. And I made them on the same day. They were sitting right next to each other. So that would just tell me beer number 2 or the yeast in there were happier. They both came from the same yeast packet. So yeah, that's the only thing I could think of, that it just went to town a little bit more. Maybe I just cut open the packets and sprinkle some on top. Maybe on the Amarillo Citra version, I put a little bit more in there. That could be, but Beersmith wanted 5.3% on both of these beers. Now, let's go ahead and smell. See which one we like best. They both have that same quality now that I'm smelling them side by side. I think beer number 2 does have a slightly more orange in it, where beer number 1 is a little bit more fruity, like sweet fruit citrus, where beer number 1 is more of a sweet orange citrus, maybe a touch of fruit in back with a little bit of alcohol in there. But we should see the same profile. The only thing we're doing is changing the boil times on when we add the hop. So beer number 1 is using more Citra. Beer number 2 is using more Amarillo. Amarillo is going to be a big citrus or orange component, where Citra is going to be more grapefruit, tropical fruit, stuff like that. Smelling them side by side, beer number 1 doesn't smell like there's any off flavors. It almost smells exactly like beer number 1, like I was saying, just more of that orange citrus is in there. For the smell, I would have to give it to beer number 1. I think that tropical fruit, that fruitiness, sticks out just a little bit more than it does in beer number 1. And I guess at the end of the day, I would rather have a tropical fruit beer than a orange beer. If I want an orange beer, I would go for like an orange wheat or something like that. So let's go ahead and taste. Beer number 1 is going to be a touch warmer because I did do that review first. I think in this, beer number 1 wins. I think beer number 2, the perceived bitterness is higher than in beer number one, and we know that's not right. Beer number one is 87.8 IBUs by Beersmith. Then beer number two is 66.4. But yeah, that it's got more of beer number two has more of a big orange rind, citrus rind, lots of bitterness in the back and then in the aftertaste. It does feel like beer number two has a lot more bitterness than beer number one. Beer number one feels smoother. Maybe a lighter body, which is kind of weird since beer number two would probably have less sugar in it because the ABV is higher. Yeah, I would say beer number two is drier than beer number one, and that would make sense. The yeast is going to eat more of the sugar in the beer, which is going to leave you with a higher ABV, but lower sugar content, lower sweetness. Also, it's going to bring down the body, and I think you can tell in at least these two, the body feels bigger on beer number one than beer number two, but you've got a bigger head. Beer number two does have more carbonation, even though it's using the same amount of carbonation drops as beer number one. It's almost like, at least for the carbonation part, that there was more yeast in beer number two, and it ate through the carbonation drops faster to produce this head, because most of the time month two is when we start seeing a head come on, at least from the small pearl drops, and this being month one with only 4 drops is kind of surprising to me. We have had a couple that have had a good head after month one, but yeah, I would say in this scenario, at least right now, beer number one is winning. I can't wait until next month to try these, because in the Centennial Cascade versus Cascade Centennial using SO4 month two, I started getting some doughiness in there. And I want to see if this SO4 is going to bring out some of that doughiness that we did get in the first series. But yeah, I think this is fine. Beers are fine. Let's start adding to them. I want to do a USO5 version, but I think I'm going to put that on the back burner and work on the malt bill. Let's add some malt to these two. Let's do another run of SO4, or maybe do something a little different with them instead of doing exactly the same as we did with the Centennial Cascade. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to work on before we go ahead and make a USO5 batch, because I think right now making it, they're not balanced. I think we're going to see IBUs at the same thing, so I think we're going to get pretty much the same thing. Let's save the yeast to the end, and maybe we can do 5 or 6 different yeasts at once. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure you hit that bell. Stop by 31st Brewing, help support us by picking up a shirt. Check some more beer reviews and homebrew videos over here, and until next time, happy brewing.